Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bhed Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gukarastvandhakaro Vai Rukarastva Nivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryamkaravavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we pick up the thread of the 15 steps to Nididhyasanam. So one should see that what is being explained here in these 15 steps is how to meditate. Because without meditation, without a skillful, effective meditation, then this bhranti, this wrong notion about myself, will not be able to be clearly seen. And so, one very good example, I think, of this phenomena is, as we have talked about it before, that if there is a sun shining during, bright sun with no clouds and so on, and you put a piece of paper there, the sun cannot burn the paper. Why? Because the way the chemistry of the paper is and the sun, there is a general set of rays that provide, of course, sun provides both light as well as heat. So there is a general set of heat which is provided you can burn your skin, for example, if you stay in the sun for a long time. So there's a general sense of heat which is provided by the sun. But that general sense of heat cannot burn the paper. But if you were to take a convex lens and focus the general heat into a particular heat, it can burn the paper. So there are two things required. In that sense, the general knowledge of Vedanta, what is Atma, what is Anatma, all the Viveka, etc., is the general knowledge. But unless you are so well prepared from your previous lives, that general knowledge is not enough for you to burn your sense of limitation, the Brahma, the Andhakara. Here it's interesting. I was reading some text by Swami Akhandananda ji when he was saying that his guru, he had many gurus that really influenced him, but he had one person who really made the big difference for him, and this is the Uriya Babaji. So Uriya Babaji, he said, would never use the word ajnani. Jnani means one who doesn't know. According to his teacher, the word ajnani is a kind of a sophisticated way of saying you don't know. And the sophisticated way of saying you don't know is not very effective. It's not very effective. So what he used to say, Uriya Babaji, बेवकूफ़ी, ये बेवकूफ़ी है. बेवकूफ़ी is a Urdu word which is used in India. It's not a Hindi word, but it is adopted by Hindi because it's a very appropriate word to describe. And the English translation of that was used very much by my Guru Swami Dayanand Ji. I remember this so well. He would, whenever he wants to make an emphasis for this, he would say, this is idiocy. I mean, he will never talk directly to the students, but he would say, if there is a question like this, I would say you are an idiot. Idiot is a very strong word. And so, see, Uriya Babaji would not mince his words. He would say, it's not ajnani, you are not knowledgeable, that's not strong enough. So the strength of this Brahma can only go to understand that I am really an idiot. Why don't I understand this? This kind of effectiveness of the meditation is only possible if I know all the steps of the meditation. So effectively it means, how do I meditate? What do I do? This is the question that we all have. So we are now proceeding along those. And here in the context, what we are specifically talking about is drishti sthiti. Drishti sthiti. And so you can say, where do I place my drishti? Drishti means my seeingness. Because my mind has to focus on something. That's what seeingness is. This is what the burning of the paper is. But the question is, where do I focus it? You can even say, put a piece of paper out in the sun and then focus the convex lens. So where do I do it? Well, right at the surface of the paper. So similarly here also, it means, where do I place my focus? So this is what the context is of the drishtisthiti. And of course, as we have discussed it, the drishtisthiti is really driksthiti. This is a very important point, and some of the advice that the Mahatmas give as to how to do it is very revealing and very helpful. To a student who has been studying this for a while, for a new student it just looks academic. But for one who is now beginning to internalize this knowledge so that we can live it and gain from it, how to meditate, where to meditate, where to put my focus on becomes extremely important. So there, I think I had already mentioned that to you, and I'm going to continue today on that, just to catch the context. The context is that in general, so this is in general, and then we'll go into more specific, but the general is very important because that's a fundamental. in general, what we should do is to develop a habit as we go around the world, except for the time when you're doing something very important, you're coding or you're writing an article or something like that, then you are very focused on what is it that you need to do. But whenever you have a chance to just observe life in general, there we need to develop a habit of not what I am seeing, what I am hearing, what I am smelling, what I am touching, etc. But how am I doing it? So the focus needs to turn from drishya to drik. And at the moment, I am very skilled and experienced. Excuse me. I'm actually getting better, even though I may not sound very well, but my voice is getting stronger and everything is going well. So just forgive me for. So at the moment, I am very experienced and skilled in observing the details of my world. This is what I do. Some of it I have to do it, some of it I choose to do it, but regardless, this is what I'm doing. I am unskilled and inexperienced in understanding how am I doing it. To a point where I say, well, I don't know, it's happening. Why should I know what I'm doing? How am I doing it? So, I mean, we don't say that specifically, but we assume that as, in fact, we had a discussion. If we were to have a discussion, this is what you will say. So it's happening. I'm seeing it. So what's the big deal about it? What that means is actually it's a very big deal. It's much bigger of a deal to understand how am I doing it than to see what am I doing. And so this transformation from drishya to drik is crucial. It is. It requires a lot of explanation, background building, helping to see how this should be done. Because there's so much more to it than we visualize. That, in fact, there is Paramatma, who is my Antaryami, who is the constant, who is not only my sati, not only my helper, but as me, is an enormous discovery that requires sustained inquiry, skillful inquiry, knowledgeable inquiry. It requires a lot. And we need, if we are serious about it, if we really are mumukshu, not only a jigyasu, not only in, because this is how the transformation goes through. First you are just enjoying life, various. then you need to know, understand it. What is happening? Where am I coming from? What is my future? How can I be completely free of the problems? So there you become a jigyasu. You become a jigyasu. You become, how will I know this? And so the very study of Vedanta, this jigyasa, gyātumichha, the desire to know. Then comes the next stage. From a jigyasu, I have to turn into a mumukshu. Mumukshu means, this is where aproksha anubhuti comes in, and say not just a general knowledge, but I want to just fulfill the very promise of Vedanta. Live a life of freedom. How do I do that? So if I'm a mumukshu, this is what I'm saying, you are serious about it, then we must also examine how do I turn my attention from drishti, from drishya to drik. How is it do I do that? Not easy yet, but we must begin. We must at least interrupt ourselves. It is kind of like, you're just playing with things like a child who's just busy playing with, balloons and marbles and all that, which is okay because the child is supposed to, this is how you learn and enjoy and so on. But at some point in time, the parents have to say, now enough. I think you have to leave it and spend some time thinking about higher things. And so this whole section of the Nididhyasanam is for Vedanta to say, if you really want to grow, here's what you need to do. You need to understand how to turn your attention from what you see to who the seer is, how this is all done. And anyway, this is what it is all about. Okay, so now that we have sort of re-established the context of what we are doing, so we are examining in the Aparoksha Anubhuti 2 verses, number 116 and 117. And so we've already gone through quite a bit of the 116. So this is in this section of the Nididhyasanam steps, there is a lot of emphasis, a lot of weight is given. So that's why we're spending more time on this. In number 116, which read the following, just to remind you, Drishtim Jnanamayim Kritva Pashyet Brahmamayam Jagat Sa Drishtihi Parama Udara Na Nasa Agra Avalokini. So what it says is that may you see the world as yourself. This is an enormous proposition. And see the challenge what this means. So, drishtim jnanamayim kritva. Drishti means whatever you are seeing. and making it into a knowledgeable drishti. Jnanamayim kritva means to make it into a knowledgeable drishti. The knowledgeable drishti is Advaita. That what appears to be different from me, and I am struggling with it because of the enormity of the world, and is really nothing but my own reflection. I am the very substance of it. I am the very truth of it. And not I as a jiva, but I as an atma, as a paramatma. And at first you have to do the atma and anatma viveka, that there is something which is not changing, something which is changing. So there are two entities. And in the end, it all becomes one entity, because the anatma is nothing but a reflection of the atma. It is like looking at myself in the mirror. There are not two people. There is only one real one and one unreal one. And so seeing that is what is called Jnanamayim Drishtim. This is what we have to do. This is the task, the challenge in front of us. Just sitting with my eyes and closing my eyes and just say Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya is not enough. A lot of work has to go through it, a lot of understanding, a lot of convincing my own mind, clearing doubts. All of that has to be done. Anyway, so let's look at the elements of it here. Drishtim Jnanamayim Kritva Pashyet Brahmamayam Jagat. That the whole world is nothing but Brahman alone. See, this is one thing here to see. If we present a proposition, if we ask you to say the whole world is nothing but you, your mind doesn't really allow you to go very further. Why? Because your mind at this point, mind means your understanding, your belief, your understanding, the way you look at things, your conclusions, doesn't allow you to even go very far. Why? Because my conclusion is as a very limited jiva. And even somebody says the whole world is nothing but your reflection, the mind just stops it and says, no, I can't believe that. I can't even proceed on this. So this is where you don't look as the Atma. Atma means me as a person, enclosed, seemingly enclosed in this body and so on. There your mind is not going to allow you to think. But if you take it as Brahman, even though Brahman is nothing but the Atma, there's no difference. But that non-differentiation can wait. And the minute, at least for the time being, your mind can entertain, at least begin to understand. What can it begin to understand? It means that the whole world is nothing but Ishvara, is Brahman. There my mind can say, okay, I can understand that. Why? Because I don't know Ishvara very well. And I don't know how the whole Jagat is composed and so on. But I can imagine. I can understand that. That can be done. So you at least start with that. So, Drishtim Jnanamayim Kritva Pashyet Brahmamayam Jagat. So this much is the first line. Then the second line is interesting. It says, Sa Drishti Parama Udara. Sa Drishti Parama Udara. This way of looking at things is Udara. Udara means generous, generosity. And so the Parama Udara, let's just look at the word Udara. Udara means the opposite of miserliness is called Udara. Miserliness is called Kripanaha. This is a very important thing for us to focus on. And this is in fact the very basis of the beginning of the word of the teaching of Gita. Karpanya dosho apahat svabhavaha. Arjuna says that I am not thinking broadly. I am thinking very narrowly, just on my own basis. And that is what is creating the problem. He already admits it. Krishna has not even started teaching him. But in the, I think it's in the first few verses of the second chapter, where Arjuna says that I am endowed with a miserliness. And the opposite of that is udara, means generosity. What does that mean? If you can just finish doing that today, I think that's where we will stop. So there, what our acharyas say is that the miserliness means me and mine. And that's all I think about. My whole way of looking at things is me and mine. My children, my family, my house. This is what me is. This is me as the body, mind. And you do not even think about including others. And so a miser is a person who does not discover the advantages of sharing, of broadening your outlook. He doesn't do that. And so as a result of that, you are devoid of the advantages. There are some advantages of doing it that I don't know. So I become very focused on myself. And so the way to have Jnanamayim Drishtim is to open up to the whole world. And whatever you have, you also see the same thing in others. There was I remember a talk, I think I'll just wrap up with this. I'll continue. There's a little bit more explanation to be done on Parama Udara, but I'm running out of time, so I will not really spend too much on it. I'll continue on. But there was a talk I remember given by one of the acharyas about 3 or 4 years ago at the Sailorsburg ashram. And at that time, there's a lot of split in the country when Trump was the president. There were people who really resented that such a person has become the president, and others who felt that this is the right thing, and so there was a lot of split in amongst the people. This was the timing of the talk. So I think it was Swami Tadatmananda, now I recall, Swami Tadatmananda gave this very beautiful talk. Which he said is that this is an era of non-acceptance of the other viewpoint. And he says that it's very unfortunate, it is happening, but what to do. His advice was, which is a great advice, is that until you understand your own self, which is Parama Udara, you cannot appreciate the same thing is there in everybody else. So the knowledge of the self also allows you to appreciate and therefore tolerate and even thrive in the world regardless of differences. Same sentiment here. So he says, Jnanamayim drishti kritva sa drishti parama udara. He says this is the way to meditate, is to open up, and so just to summarize this part, if you look at just one part of it, there you overlook the differences in the world, good and bad, papa, punya, etc., all of those, but try to look at your own nature, which by itself is not influenced by it. Your mind is influenced by it, but the Atma is not. So try to understand that asangoham, that it doesn't really matter to me. That is the drishti which is being talked about here in this Jnanamayim drishti. So we will continue the discussion a little bit. Some more things need to be said just on this one step. So we will do that next week. Okay? Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvamanusandatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramo Upanishadaihi Gayantiyam Samaga Dhyana Vastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyantiyam Yoginaha Yasyantam Navidussura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Okay, let us now pick up where we left off. I don't know, a long time ago it seems like. I meant to go over this last week and then just do a little bit of a introduction to Shivaratri, but as the way things, it was just I was prompted, nothing planned. I just thought that we would spend more time on the Shiva, and so I took the whole class and didn't even go into the Bhagavad Gita. So anyway, there's been somewhat of a break. So let's build the context again, since it's been a while. So so what we had seen in the shloka number 26 of the second chapter, Atha chainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochitum arhasi. So this we had done before, but just to re-establish the context. Here he had given a number of reasons to Arjuna to say, please don't grieve. You're just unnecessarily getting sad and so on. There's no reason for it. And as we will see in this one also, it's kind of like some child's balloon has burst, and the child is just crying. So you have to tell him that please don't. It's going to be okay. I know you can put your arms around it, but there's no real reason to be sad. This is what the context was. So there, in the introduction of verse number 20, introduction of verse number 26, where we saw on page number 75, Evam, I'm just going back a little bit. Evam samsara brahma vidvamsakam atma yathatmya vigyanam upadishya Shri Bhagavan etadrisha vigyanasya atma prasadena vina labdum ashakyatvat arjune tat tad anudayam alakshya prakarantarena sat shokam apakartum idamaha athacha. So what it says is that in the explanation of all the other one, avyaktoyam, achintyoyam, etc., Arjuna does not seem to have grasped it completely. Maybe he has begun to do it, but I don't see how he has. So atma prasadena vina labdum ashakyatvat. I'm just going back to the introduction to verse number 26. So he says that until you have atma prasada, so you have Ishvara prasada, you have Shastra prasada, means blessing. Until you have the Shastra prasada, until you have the Guru prasada, then you have to have ultimately Atma prasada. Atma prasada means your mind must grasp it. And until then, you don't appreciate what is being talked about. So, Atma prasadena vina labdum ashakyatvat. So he says, without knowing, it is not possible to gain the results of Atma Vidya. Therefore, he says, seeing this, watching his face. This is where they say that the Guru Shishya need to be very close to each other. And normally you should be doing this in very isolated. You have a one-on-one with people, and then the Guru should watch whether the Shishya is grasping it or not. And you can tell from their faces and so on. If not, then you have to think about another way to convince them. So this is exactly what is happening. Prakarantarena tad shokam apakartum iti aha. So he says, a new method of convincing Arjuna that there is no need for him to be sad is now taken up. And this is the verse number 26. He says, Athacha enam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho na enam shochitum arhasi. So the new method is, this is a very important method that for us to adopt ourselves. It is not just for Arjuna, we are the Arjunas. That if something is going to happen anyway, then why worry about it? You cannot, if your shoka and if your sorrow and your sadness can prevent something from happening, then I would say go ahead and be sorrowful. But if there is something that is going to happen, then to make a big deal out of it, as you know, you cannot stop it. It is the natural order. Then your shokam is not justified. So this is what he says, athacha enam nitya jatam. Nityam va manyase mritam. If you see, this you have to convince. You have to convince the very data. The data is that whatever is born must die. And the reverse of it too. Whatever is dead, dying, will be born again. And we saw the reasons for doing that. I myself had a doubt about, I can understand what is born will die, but I don't understand what will die will be born again. And then I went over this a couple of weeks ago, or whenever we talked about this, that because your Sukshma Sharira is still there, the wantingness is still there, therefore you will be born again. So in any case, both of these phenomena of birth and death is inevitable. And so therefore, may I suggest to you, Arjuna, that if it is inevitable, if you are able to stop it in some way, then I can say you're justified. But if it is beyond you to stop it, I don't see it. Just then make the best out of it, because it's going to happen sooner or later. And whether it happens a little bit sooner or later is not in your hands, primarily. It may be in some very temporary manner, but other than that, it's just going to happen. So then that is continued on. This sentiment is continued on in shlokas number 27 and 28. So we have already done number 27. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu. He says that dhruva means for sure. No question about that. There's no somewhere it says, no, maybe some people that are born may not die. Stupidity. Dhruvo mrityu, jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu. Whatever is born will definitely be gone. And the other way, dhruvam janma mritasya cha. So for somebody who is gone, there must be a janma. This is also dhruvam. Both of them are dhruvam, means for sure. Tasmat apariharye arthe. Apariharye arthe is the same thing as dhruvam, that for therefore something that is not the same thing, it is something similar. Tasmat apariharye arthe means one that cannot be violated, cannot be changed. There's no method to violate that. Tasmad apariharye arthe natvam shochitum arhasi. Therefore, you do not deserve to really do shoka. So we did that on number 27. Then comes number 28, which is the logic of Janma and Mrityu. Logic of Janma and Mrityu. And this becomes a very key shloka for us to keep in our minds as we transact with this world. And this becomes a very key logic for us to see the mithyatvam of the Jagat, the non-reality of the Jagat. And this particular verse is really quoted very, very profusely. I've seen that in the rest of the Shastra. And I'm sure that this is also, because Gita is not an independent source of wisdom, it is based on Upanishads. So I'm sure that this is there in some Upanishads. I don't know for a fact. So there it says, number 28 says, excuse me, avyaktadini bhutani. Avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidhanani eva tatra ka paridevana. So this gives the logic of Janma and Mrityu. And not only gives the logic of Janma and Mrityu, but also explains the reality of Janma and Mrityu. So as a Vedantin, we must be very clear about this. So Janma and Mrityu means what is born, what is dead or is dying. This is very common. Everybody can see it. But how this happens is contained in this verse. And so what it's saying is, let's just do the words first and then we'll go into the meaning of it. The words are saying that the bhutani means ones that are visible. Anyone that has a status of being recognized is called bhutaha. So bhutaha means one that is a recognizable entity, like a human being, animal, etc. We're all bhutani. So the bhutani at first were avyaktadini. At one point we were not visible. So this is our status. This is the reason for the Janma and Mrityu. So follow this. Something which is visible at one time was there but not visible. You see, this is the Shastra teaching that there is no real beginning. It's not as though you come out of nothingness. You may appear to come out of nothingness, but the fact of the matter is, the reality of it is, the truth of it is, you were always there, but not visible. not manifest. And so as let's finish doing this and then we'll go into some examples. So avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata. Hey Bharata, hey Arjuna, that while you are visible, you are there as though it is the middle portion of your existence. You had a invisible part of your existence, then you have a visible part of your existence. Number two. Number three, avyakta nidhanani eva. Then what is visible becomes invisible. Same thing that is there, unchanging, that we will see later whether it is unchanging or not, but let's just assume it's a single entity, is what we're talking about, is avyaktadini, vyaktamadhyani, and vyakta nidhanani eva. Nidhanani means, and I think in Sanskrit they will all show this, it merges back. And so there the example, as you know very well, we have seen this, is that of any basic form being formed by, you have gold, and from the gold you form certain ornaments, and the ornaments have the ability to stay there because were they there before? Well, in the case of the gold, is not the same, because here we're talking about the same person. So that is not, similarly in a wave of an ocean, you don't have this soul of a person it's not the same wave. When a wave disappears in an ocean, then it doesn't have any kind of an identity that can be retained when it comes out again. It's a different wave. So that's the difference between these simplistic examples and our own case. So in the case of the human being, what happens is that because the Sukshma Sharira does not die, this is what is called the soul of a human being. So we don't call it soul or anything, we call it Sukshma Sharira. We call it the subtle body. So the subtle body is the mind. It is the desire to be free. This is what subtle body is. And so that one is constant between one manifestation and another. So it is the same person who was unmanifest before the birth, but simply unmanifest. It was there. Then becomes manifest in this life. And then we become non-manifest again. So therefore it means that the logic of Janma and Mrityu is simply the manifestation and unmanifestation. There is no real Janma and no real Mrityu. This is what is being talked about in this verse. Avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidhanani eva tatra ka paridevana. Okay. This being the case, let us now see the more details of what Swami Shankarananda has pointed out. Okay. So let me go into the commentary of this. But this is the basic aspect of it. I think we have already covered that. So, here So one very interesting explanation of this by Swami Shankarananda. So he gives two different ways of looking at the word avyaktani, avyakta. Avyakta means non-manifest. Two ways of looking at it, and both are correct. Both are correct in the context. It's not as though there is a dispute, it's either one or the other and people cannot decide. That's not it. It's just that there are two different aspects of the word avyakta. So I'll give you the very short form of it, then I will explain where this is given in more detail in the commentary in the book. So the two ones are, avyakta means non-manifest, as obviously we've already seen it. And there is some, by the way, it's an explanation of given this in the second line on page 76. I'm sorry, of the main paragraph, not the first short paragraph, but so line number 4 of page 76, he defines the word bhutani. Bhutani means bhavanti iti bhutani, one which is there. Sharirani, and the word kta is bhave prayoga. Bhave kta means the very sense of it, the general sense of it, of being born, is called bhutani. Okay, so anyway, hold that for a minute. Let's go over the two main ways of looking at the word avyakta. Okay. The first one, he says, this easily could talk about the Maya Shakti. Maya Shakti. Avyaktadini means the Maya. How is it, why is it indicative of Maya? Because the Maya Shakti itself is not visible, but the effects of it are visible. You see, this is the important thing. So, Avyaktadini in our Shastra also sometimes is referred to the Maya Shakti. The Maya Shakti means the power to make things appear is the Maya Shakti. So a simple example of that is that, especially this is what happens in the last few days, we lost power twice within 1 week. I lost power before the class on Tuesday, and then again yesterday we lost power. And I was going to, if it had not come back by the evening, even this class would not be possible. All because of a rather severe windstorm. There's a lot of wind here, and as a result, a lot of the branches fell over the electric wires and broke it off, and so people had to go without it. So now look at that example. When you go outside and you see the leaves moving, what do you conclude? What do you conclude? You conclude something is pushing the leaves. Vayu, wind. So the wind by itself, do you see the wind? No, I don't see the wind. But I see the effect of the wind in leaves moving. So similarly here, this is the Maya Shakti is, you don't see the Maya Shakti itself, but it is unmistakable what it does in the world. It does some very peculiar things. Maya Shakti has so powerful and so variegated and so enormous. It does many, many things. As a very simple example, the Maya Shakti means that it creates things that are not there. This is the Yama Sa Maya. Yama means, Ma means no, not there at all, but it makes it look like it. And so I think one of the most interesting example of this Shakti, of the Maya Shakti, is makes the dead people alive. If you look at your dream, you see, I see this many, many times. I see my mom and my dad moving around, talking, as though they are there. And I am interacting with them. And it happens all the time. Where does that power? It's not as though I'm interacting with them and I'm saying, oh my gosh, these people, where do they come from? My mother has been dead for a while. How come she is? No. I interact with her as though she's alive. Where does that Shakti come from? From the Maya Shakti. Enormous. Anyway, we'll talk about that. I'm going into some detail on this. So, this is one of the two interpretations of Avyakta, from which things becomes Vyakta, but by itself it is never visible. It's called the Maya Shakti. Okay? And then comes the second way of looking at it. And this is, I may not get to all of it, but at least I wanted to tell you exactly how the explanation is, what it is showing. The second part of the Avyakta is not just the power of Maya. The power of Maya is a personality, right? That's the personality. This is what our personality is. Personality means something which is not the person itself, but one which has certain potential, certain covering, certain gunas. This is what is called personality, right? So the Maya Shakti, we are given actually the ability to delude ourselves, to make our own ours. So imagining things without the reality, as we just talked about in the dream. So that is a personality. The word Avyakta can also mean the person. This is very, very interesting. Very beautifully pointed out by Swami Shankarananda. Honestly. So Avyaktadini means the Avyakta is the Atma. Now we've talked about this so many times in the last few classes, that the Atma means I, the real I, is never Vyakta. It cannot be. In fact, this is the glory of the Atma. Because, just look at it, if it is visible, it becomes Vyakta, then it would be reduced down to something very small and specific that anybody can see. You want Atma to be like that? But we do. We want Paramatma to come in right in front of me. We want him to, and so really our Shastras point out that if you really want to do that, Shiva and Shankara and Vishnu and Brahmaji can come. It's not a problem, and they have come. They have come to as a small human being, but that is just kind of like in a dream-like situation. But because it is your own Atma which is completely encompassing, it is not something specific. You are there. This is what makes you and I so amazing, is that I am there always, in all times. This is what is called kalataha aparichinna. I am not limited by time. How am I not limited by time? You tell me when you were not there. All you can say is, well, before I was born, I was not there. Speculation. There's no proof for it. Think about a proof. You are there as with the moment you gain entry into the world. You are there as a 1-year-old. You are there as a 2-year-old. You are there now. You're always there. Kalataha aparichinna. Deshataha aparichinna. From a standpoint of places, is there any place where you were not there? We're talking about your own experience. You're there in all places. So anyway, so this is what is called anantam. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. So you're always there. So the point is that if you are visible, supposing you're saying, no, I don't trust anything which is invisible. That has to be done in front of me. See, this is how a normal, healthy person will say. I don't believe in God. Why? Because I don't see him. It has to be tested. It has to be replicated in an experiment. And then I can say, yes, this is God number one. This is what our thinking is. But we do not see until it is pointed out that I am there, even though I am not visible. You kindly make a diary and tell me, just write me an email. Please write me an email and do the following. You say, I have a doubt, and you talked about this the other day, but I don't quite agree with it. I have a doubt. So here's what you're supposed to do, and say, just now I am not there. So then you know what my reply to your email would be? Supposing you send me an email and say, I don't understand all this and so on because I am not always there. At this point I am not there. So my reply to you would be, how do you know you were not there? You see, that's the thing. You can never disappear. Never disappear. And never disappear by never appearing even. You don't have to be appearing. But that's exactly what our mistaken view is that everything needs to be seen in front of me, including myself. And so you cannot see anything until you are there. See this point. This is called the avyakta of the Atma. As you remember, we talked about this in the first verse of Dakshinamurti Stotram, where Swami Maheshanandaji has pointed out the very top title of each verse. This was Atma Avyaktaha. So this is exactly what it is. So there are two viewpoints of the word Vyakta and Avyakta. Now let me, in the short time, so now that I've given you the two different meanings of the word Avyakta, let's look into where it says that. So you don't think he's just making it up on his own. No, I don't make anything up. I don't have the capability of making things up. I only go with what the Shastra is saying, the Mahatmas are saying. I'm going to somewhat go rather quickly. So I'm going to go with the so the first viewpoint, that the Avyakta refers to Maya, is given in the big paragraph on page 76. Second line of which I've already talked about. So let me do the whole thing. Nama Rupa Gunadihi Bhinnam Na Vyajyate Iti Avyaktam Maya Tasyaha Sakashad Adi Janma Yesham Tani Avyaktadini. So he says that all the Nama Rupas, etc., are born out of which, is manifest out of which, even though itself is Avyakta, but because it is born out of them, is therefore the Maya Shakti is called Maya, is called Avyakta. Then he had already said Bhutani Bhavanti Ti Bhutani Sharirani Bhavektaha. Vyaktam Vyaktata Madhye Yesham Tani Vyakta Madhyani Deva Tiryang Manushya Brahmana iti Abhasataha Madhye Labdhar Swarupani. So now he is explaining the word Madhya Sharira, Madhyani, Vyakta Madhyani, means that they take these various forms such as Deva, Tiryag means the animals, Manushyaha, Brahmanaha, etc., different jatis, etc. Then the third one, Punaha Avyakta Nidhanani, Avyakte Mayayam Eva Nidhanam Layaha Yesham Tani Avyakta Nidhanani Aindrajalikavat Drishta Nashta Swarupani. Aindrajalikavat Drishta Nashta Swarupani. So there he gives that the ones that dissolve back in the Maya. So this Aindrajali means that it's this is a very interesting word. Aindrajala means the vision created by a magician. Like, that the old days they used to say that, look at these clouds. Do you see on the left hand side there is an elephant? You see it all, and it's moving, and it's now going to fight with another elephant. Like that they make some kind of a situation. And interestingly enough, we have certain floor tiles in our home, and we've been living in this home for since 1985. So I was just looking at one of the floor tiles, and if you look at it the right way, in fact, I might take a picture and show it to you. If you look at it a particular way, it looks like a man with a big mustache. It looks exactly like this. But it is not. You can see it. And if you're not careful, it just becomes just like another floor tile. But if you're carefully looking at it, it could look like somebody can be pointed out that this looks like a mustached human being. It can be done. So similarly here is Aindrajala. So here Swami Maheshan and Swami Shankarananda ji had given a very beautiful example. He says, when you see a rainbow after a rainy day when the sun is shining, rainbows, it's a very beautiful phenomenon. Does the rainbow really exist? Does it have any weight? Can you capture it? You can capture it by taking a photograph, yes. But does it really have is it an entity? It's not. So what happens is a very interesting phenomena that out of nowhere, you can ask the child to run after it and go seek if you can catch the rainbow. That'll be a cruel thing to do because you'll never be able to find it. So it's an interesting phenomena because out of nowhere it appears. And it's very beautiful. You can see all the 7 different colors in it and the arch of it. Sometimes from our house we have seen double rainbows. Very rare, but we have seen it. It comes out of nowhere and then disappears back again. Where does it disappear? To the sky? Here, this is when we go into the more details of the Mandukya Upanishad, where in the Karika, which we will do, I'm just waiting to really teach that. I think that will be a wonderful thing to do. In the Gaudapada Karika, we've already done that once, about 4 or 5 years ago. But now I think with this new commentary and so on, we'll revisit it and go into more details, not only the more details, but a different vision of how to see the essence of the Omkara. Anyway, that's a separate thing. But here he points out, Swami Akhandanandaji points out, that if you were to look at the rainbow, where is the rainbow? Where exactly is it? You can ask the sky and say, do you have the rainbow? Is the rainbow in you? If supposing you are talking to a sky, sky means the space. Supposing the space has some chaitanyam. It can talk. It is alive. And if you were to have a dialogue and say, hey, I see this rainbow in you, where is it in you? So the sky will say, it's not in me. What are you talking about? It must be in you. So no, it's not in me. It's neither in the space, neither in the human being. Where is it? It's just an appearance. And in fact, the rainbow is a good example of the entire world. Really speaking, there is no reality of the whole world at all. It is an appearance. It's a very funny appearance with a lot of solidity. But by itself it is not resident. Anyway, we'll go into that detail. I don't want to go into too much of it. So this is what is called Aindrajalikavat Drishtanashta Swarupani. Drishtanashta Swarupani means, so this applies to the whole thing, Avyaktadini, Madhyani, etc., Nidhanani. Drishtanashta Swarupani. This is how the world is. As it is being seen, it is disappearing. It is just a movie. There is no reality to it. This is what we have to see. And so then he says, Drishtanashta Surupani Ataha Eva Sharirani Maya Karyani. This is a very interesting thing. It's a very interesting thing that the whole body, here you can take either the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, all three of them are nothing but the effects of Maya. Only the effects. Maya Karyani. Then he says, Yatha Swapna Prapancho Yam Mai Maya Vijrimbitaha. He says that the entire Swapna Prapancha in me is created by Nidra, which is a Maya Shakti. So Nidra means the power of sleep. The power of sleep is a very personalized form of Maya. I see this. You cannot say, where is Maya? This is only talked about in Vedanta books and so on. There's no Maya. Hey, at least you should recognize the Maya Shakti in your swapna, in your dream experience. You should recognize it because, wow, how the dead people are made alive. How your mother, who's been gone for a while, appears right in front of you and you're talking to her. Maya Shakti. So this is what it says. Yatha swapna prapanchoyam mai maya vijrimbitaha. It has been created, brought up. Vijrambanam. Tatha jagrat prapanchoyam mai maya vijrambitaha. So this is a quotation from one of the Upanishads. Yes, they are very similar. Don't you see it? They are very similar. Iti vachanad idam sarvam swapna arthavat mayikam eva iti sarvasya mayak. Let me read the whole sentence. Yeah, so let's read the whole sentence. He says, Iti, therefore he concludes, Iti vachanad, by these words, idam sarvan swapna arthavat mayikam. So the whole thing is nothing but it is endowed with magic, as though. Swapnavat mayikam eva. Only, it is nothing else. You cannot say this is one of the explanations. This is the only explanation. The whole world is nothing but it is just a appearance. It's a very fundamental thing that we have to really begin to appreciate. It doesn't appear to be just an appearance, but it is. Mayikam eva sarvasya maya karyatvam maya karyatvam eva Viditavataha purushasya tatra marya karye maya ayam hanyate mriyate nashyati ka paridevana. So he says, this being the case, the whole thing is just a dreamlike experience. There to say this is mine and I'm very sad and I'm doing this doesn't make any sense. Let it go. Let it go. Just let it go. Mithya bhutarthe kaf paritapaha. He says things that are not really sustainable and not true. Here, I think the analogy that we should think about is that of a child being enamored by a balloon. I think it's a very great example. That this is fascinating how 1 or 2 year old child is so fascinated by balloons. This is why we give balloons on their early birthday. And nowadays, of course, even for adults we give balloons. Because the balloons have a certain form, a certain color. And now if they can float up and so on and so forth, they have some very interesting ability that captivates this small child. And this will come a little bit later on, but since we're talking about it, I can bring it here. So there are 2 parts to why a child can become dukkhi. It becomes sorrowful when the balloon bursts. There are 2 reasons. One reason is that it cannot stand that something which was so beautiful has now gone immediately. It is just left into some, something that has to be thrown away. So this is exactly what happens when we lose a loved one. We don't understand how that person who was sitting there talking to me and so on and so forth is now dead. So the child does not accept the fact that something which was fun to play with is now immediately gone. And so the counter to that is that it was not meant to last. Balloons are not meant to last. It cannot last. In fact, it's a funny thing how it gets blown up without bursting. And sometimes it bursts while it is being blown up. But it came out of nowhere. It just gave you some fun and then it's disappeared. Okay, so this is one of the 2 reasons why one should not, you're not going to tell this to a 2-year-old. But if it is a 5-year-old, you can now give certain reasons and say, it's okay. We'll get you another balloon. The balloon is meant to go. And the 5-year will say, you're right. You're right. So this is one of the 2 reasons why a child becomes sad when a balloon bursts. The second reason is, it is my balloon. So you can imagine, supposing there is a big party going on and there are 10 kids and everybody is given a balloon and they're all having fun and so on, and somebody else's balloon bursts. Even a child will not feel bad about it. Why? Because this is not my balloon. I don't care if somebody else's balloon bursts. But if my balloon bursts while the others are still going on, then the sorrow becomes more palpable, more real. This is exactly what our life is. I mean, every day we have so many deaths, so many accidents. You look at the one in Turkey, 46,000 people. But you look at it on the television, and the next thing you know is that now I'm having breakfast and now I'm enjoying myself. There's no big thing. Why? Because it is not near you, not one of your people. So deaths go on, but if it is my closed one, then I get upset. And so, really speaking, in the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna was given the admonition by Krishna, he was saying that because you are specially upset because some of these relatives you think they are yours. So the sense of minus creates a lot of problems in one's life. Anyway, so we will continue with this. So there are two explanations. One is Avyakta refers to Maya, and the other one is Avyakta refers to Atma. And how this is presented by Swami Shankarananda in the two large paragraphs. I was hoping to finish it today, but we will do that next time. Okay? So with that, let me close the class. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Great. Thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for attending. Good. Just kind of looking out ahead a little bit. So, as you can tell, the taking up of the Gita with the details of the commentary takes a long time. And obviously it's not possible for us to finish the Bhagavad Gita, which will take 10 years of these classes. So what I'm planning to do is I'm getting very enthused, both for myself and to share it with you, the explanation and the treatment of Mandukya with the Karika by Swami Akhandananda ji. It has really given me detailed insights, new insights. And the fact that we have done it before once is actually a plus, not a minus, because we've already had some exposure to it. So in that case, the Shravanam has been done. So once we take it up again, this will be in the form of Mananam. Same topic, but in the form of explanations. So I am really enthused to start that some point. When we start it, I don't know yet. I will look into that. The one thing that I would like to convey is that recently I got some limited copies of the Mandukya and the Karika. So they are in 4 volumes. Each volume is about 1.5 inches thick, so there's 4 volumes of it. And I think I have only gotten 10 copies of that. These are in Hindi. So for those of you that understand Hindi, I think I'm going to keep 1 copy to myself. I have an old one, but it's kind of falling apart. So I'm going to keep 1 new set for me. And the other 9, I would then offer it to those of you that understand Hindi, because then you can just follow it. If you don't understand Hindi, then as we've done before, you'll have to simply rely on my explanation. And I think that this Mandukya with Karika, if I end my teaching with this, I will be happy. This is the final word. There's nothing more that needs to be done. And the way Swami Akhandananda ji has really provided that has been just enormous. So this will go on for a while. This is not just like a 6-month project. So instead of going unlimited on the Bhagavad Gita with Swami Shankarananda, I think we will finish it up to a certain point. I don't know how long. I have to really think about it. But sometime in the next few months, I couldn't say a few weeks, we will begin the Mandukya Karika with this explanation. These 9 books should be available soon, and I'm going to begin the process of figuring out who wants it, who deserves it, so that you at least have that. And if we need to get additional copies, we can get that. Now I know how to do it. I set that up when I was in India, and at least those copies have come in. But more can be ordered if there are more than 9 of you that understand Hindi. And so that's the plan that I have for the Saturday morning class. So my sense would be that I'll probably complete all of the Nididhyasanam steps, all 15 of them, and complete as much of the Gita as possible. And then we will switch over to Mandukya Karika on the Saturday morning. The Tuesday night, I'm not sure. I have some ideas about what to do on that segment. So we will think about that. But for the Saturday, that's what my plan is. All right, so with that, I take your leave, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Hari Om.